Well, hello everybody. It's Bill Duran here from Punished Props, and even though I didn't do this last week, I'm doing it this week. Hooray! Welcome to Prop Live, the show where we answer your prop and costume making questions. I have a spectacular guest today. You better live up to the hype, Mr. Eric Jarman from Jarman Props. Hello, Eric.
Hello.
Where are you right now, Eric?
I am in my basement in Nashville, Tennessee.
Aha. You ever watch the show Drunk History?
I have seen a couple episodes.
Alright, they did a Nashville, Tennessee one. I can't remember what it was about, but it was hilarious.
My money's on country music.
I don't remember. Folks, Eric is a super talented maker and wizard of things, and there's his page. All right, and he does this little thing he calls Jarman Props. Very super creative name, very creative man, and he makes lots of cool stuff, just like me, prop making and the like, and costumes and stuff. And if you go over to Facebook and look up Jarman Props, then you will find him. And you should go give him a like, because he's doing all kinds of cool stuff. Yeah. What cool stuff are you doing these days, Eric?
I am currently working on my Dragon Con costume. I'm going to do Dragon Scale from Skyrim. And I don't have a lot to show for it. You can see the torso piece in the background here.
Yep.
And I've been working on the bracers. I've been using this as an opportunity to learn about urethane rubbers. I'm going to try and cast the entire suit out of urethane. So it's very spiky. I don't want to be putting people's eyes out at con.
That's a rather nice thing of you to do.
Well, it'll be more comfortable, a little heavier, but no armor rash from wearing in weird places. So
yeah, I know my Dragon Age 2 mage armor has that spikety shoulder piece, and I did that out of rigid PVC sheet, and that poked some people. Definitely got some poking going in. Armor. I'm looking up the Dragon Scale armor picture right now. Yeah, that's pretty pokey.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Is that this guy right here?
Yes, sir. That's him.
Yeah. Look at that. So yeah, that's pretty ambitious project you got going on there.
Well, we'll see if it actually makes it to Dragon Con this year or not.
Yeah.
I tried to do glass armor last year and it just kind of didn't quite happen.
Nope. Well, sometimes your ambition will overshadow your actual time that you have available to get a project done. Cool, man. I'm looking forward to seeing the progress on that. And again, folks, if you go to Facebook and look up Jarman Props, you can see his progress as he's working on that and many other really cool things. I did a Psycho Mask kit that Eric did. I painted up one of those, and that was super cool. So Eric's done some of that stuff.
Did you get the last one I sent you?
The one most recently?
Yes. Is it coming in yet?
I haven't checked the mail today, so it's not yet, but it might be on my front porch right now.
I'm excited. It's like Christmas.
So you take care of the show. I'll go get that right now.
It's my show now. I'm taking power.
Yeah. All right. So a couple things going on in my world, folks, while the people are tuning in. Oh, and by the way, everyone, if you're live and you want to ask a question, you can head on over to the Google event page for this live video and ask your question via the Q&A app right there. Some questions are already rolling in. We got a bunch of them from Facebook earlier today, so we'll go get those answered in just a moment, but I have some updates. First, I haven't had much to show off lately because I'm working on a super secret, big old freaking commission that I can't talk about. I'm under NDA, but soon I'll have more info on that. Also, for people who did my Kickstarter, I finally got all of these. These are the guides that come with every freaking level going forward. So those are slowly but surely churning their way out of the shop. So look forward to that. And finally, I did a domain transfer on my website. No, it doesn't work. So I'll have to fix that. If anyone goes to punishprops.com, there's nothing there right now. But in the next day or two, I'll get that fixed. So that's what I've got going on in my world. Yeah, other than that, you got anything else you want to chat about, Eric, or should we go answer some questions?
No, it's been pretty quiet around here. I don't really take commissions right now, so questions.
All right, sounds good to me. Let's start with a question that I picked up from Facebook earlier today. By the way, folks, if you're watching and you're not following me on Facebook, that's facebook.com/punishedprops. And I usually pick up questions earlier in the day, so if you can't watch live, you can still leave a question, and I will answer it. All right. This one's coming in from Rauno, and the question is, how do you add lights and wires to a gun when you cast it in resin? Do you cast the two halves separately and wire the lights up and then put them together? How would you go about that, Eric?
Well, unless you're casting that gun as a solid resin piece, which is going to weigh 20 pounds or so, you would want to basically have your plan of how you're going to wire it laid out first. So when you slush cast it, it shouldn't be too much trouble to drill a couple access holes and route your wires through there. Might be difficult trying to get those wires through there and fish them back out the other side, but you could freehand wire it like that, or you could use spotlights. I know Ben Moon uses these little tiny self-contained LED modules that you just twist them and they turn on. I think he used them in his Mass Effect gear last year, and you could use those to add point lights. That should be pretty easy to replace once the batteries go dead.
I did. So, by the way, that Valkyrie rifle, that kit that I got from you, I put some lights in that, and the body of that was hollow slush cast. So I was able to poke a couple holes in it, and then feeding the wire through it is kind of a pain, but you only have to do it once. I've also added lights to my gun card effects kit. There we go. And the lights for that are right up near the barrel. So now that piece was solid plastic, but I cut the bottom barrel off and then took a big old Forstner bit and just drilled a hole straight through. That was the diameter of a flashlight, and the hole went deep enough that it met up where the lights go. And then I just took a flashlight, wired the lights off of it, and aimed them sideways, and then took the whole body of the flashlight and jammed it and replaced the bottom barrel with it. And then I had a place to put the batteries, and I had a switch already on it, and that worked out really well too. So anytime you can do wiring where you just take something that already works, modify it a little bit, and then just glue it in place, I recommend that. Sound good? All right. Thank you, Rauno. Next question is going to come from the Q&A app from Matthew. This one is, I'm looking for a good way to paint a visor piece or a piece of transparent acrylic so that you can see through it, but on the other side it looks like a solid reflective color. This is a tricky one. Doing like sunglasses or motorcycle visor tints. I've never done much in that space before. I know that it becomes an economy of scale sort of thing. If you're going to do one visor, then the materials for it are really expensive. If you're going to do 1,000 of them, it makes a lot more sense. I know someone was just talking about this on Facebook, and I want to say it was...
Take a look at Sean Bradley. He's got
Yes.
that down pat for his ODST helmets.
That's what it was.
Not 100% sure how he does it, but they look fantastic.
Yeah, so that's in the world of Halo. So Matthew, the guy asking this question, if you check out the what's it called? 405th? Is that it? Yeah, so the 405th, if you just look up 405th on Google, you'll find them. That's the Halo costuming community. And I know a lot of people in that world do the visor thing, because just about every Halo costume has a cool visor on it. Look up them and check out their forums, and then look up Sean Bradley. He's done a bunch of that stuff before as well. Yeah. So there you go. Good luck. I don't quite have the answer for you. I do know that it involves some chemicals. So good luck, Matthew, on your visor coloring adventures. This next one here.
Wait, I found it. Hold on, let me share my screen real quick.
Go for it.
He did.
Oh.
Yeah. He doesn't say how he was doing those, but I'm pretty sure that's what he's looking for, and I too would be curious to know how he's doing that. So there is that.
There you go. All right. Good luck with your visors. At some point, I know I'm gonna need to do like a bunch of visors like that, and I'll finally go in and invest whatever I need to get that done. All right. Next question came in from Facebook. This is from Fort Knox Props. Fort Knox Props is looking forward to meeting us at DragonCon. Yeah, DragonCon. Was wondering if either of us has experience with Plasti-Dip over foam. You go for it. I've never actually used Plasti-Dip before.
Okay. This one gets kind of in depth. Plasti-Dip is a synthetic rubber that is mostly aerosolized through spray can. You can get the brush-on version as well. But the thing is, being a rubber, probably a urethane, it's not going to want to stick to a lot of things, and it's not going to be really acceptable in paint. And the same is true for your EVA foam. It has a really high vinyl content to it, so painting directly onto it or sealing it with something, the standard these days is using Plasti-Dip, is going to be difficult. It might be okay if you're just going to wear it a couple times. I've seen people, they just take the raw foam, heat gun the crap out of it, and then just put their paints right over top of that, and it seems to work okay. But after a while, you're going to see those paints start to delaminate.
I've had some pretty good luck with my Shepherd armor. I just painted right on top of that.
Exactly.
And I wasn't worried about it chipping, though, because it looked good if it was all beat up. If you want something to look more pristine, that might not be the best thing to do.
The standard these days seems to be taking a heat gun to shrink the pores down on your EVA foam before you paint it. And on the plus side, that gives you a really nice smooth surface to paint on, but on the con side, that's reducing any chance of mechanical lock with your paint on that. So you want to either take a little bit of 220 to scuff up the surface slightly so that your paint has something to grab into, your surface has some teeth on it. Or what I've found works really well is to apply some type of adhesive to it. Tammy makes a spray called 373, which is an industrial adhesive that works really, really well for a lot of other things, but it's also worked great for this. You can use barge, thin down a little bit of barge cement or contact adhesive, brush it all over your entire piece, and then just put your paint right on that. And it's an adhesive against your foam and then against your paint on the other side, and it makes for a really nice bond, and you don't have to mess with trying to coat something with a Plasti-Dip and masking off all the parts that you don't want painted with that, and it keeps all your details nice and pristine so that you're not just glomming over them with a coat of rubber. So
the other thing you can do, my pal Ted Smith just recently, if you go look up Evil Ted Smith on YouTube, look up his foam helmet tutorial over here. He does balloon latex over his foam stuff, and he says he likes that a whole lot. So if you're interested in doing a bunch of stuff and you want to play with a different option, you'll need this particular spray gun that he's got, and you'll need balloon latex and an air compressor. But apparently this works super rad too. So there's another option for you.
And latex is a lot easier to paint than vinyl.
Right. So there you go. Good luck, Fort Knox Props. See you at DragonCon. All right. Another question coming in from Rob over on the Q&A app. Have you ever resin coated a prop completely? I'm thinking about black resin coating my sci-fi pistol, but I'm not sure how to go about brushing over the whole thing. I've just seen people do one-sided things on risers. Not sure. Oh, I guess just painting one side while it's like being lifted up on something. I'm not sure what type of resin you're talking about and why you're coating it. It's possible you could be doing something like using an epoxy resin like Epsilon to coat a foam piece, I guess. That's one thing you could be doing. Generally, I don't when I'm building like a one-off, as opposed to something I'm going to mold, I make it out of rigid materials like MDF and styrene. And then if I need to seal an area, like the cut end of a piece of MDF, I'll even use something like just super glue to seal the end of it, and that works really great. Just sand it down.
Bill, I've got an example of that here for the dragon scale I'm working on. This piece is started out as foam, and then I've coated it with resin. Another piece here, piece of foam. I've just coated it in onyx. It gives it more structural integrity, gives it a nice surface to work off of. And you got to be careful with onyx and Smoothcast 300 and 65D and those kind of things. If you put it on too late in the cure cycle, you're going to just gum up all your details. I'm not sure what the application here is for that. If you're trying to make your prop more durable, or if you're trying to give yourself a surface to paint on, or to sand down to like a glass finish, but it's really going to depend on what the application is for the process.
I'll tell you what I have done. I was building a shield, and I just needed the dome shape, and I made it all out of insulation foam, and I wanted to make the outer surface one homogeneous density so that I could fill and sand it and everything. So I did exactly that. I brushed on a bunch of like Smoothcast 300 or something, which is, we're talking resins, that's like a polyurethane resin, as opposed to an epoxy resin like, what do you call it, Epsilon. Anyway, that worked really great. I just brushed it on, and like you said too, as when it started to cure a little bit, it's like, step away, it's done. If you have some in the cup, leave it, throw it away, because it's then you'll do one brush and you just leave this giant streak across your thing, and it's then you have to sand that all down later. So do it, work in small, if you're gonna do something like that, work in small batches. That's what I say. All right. Thank you, Rob, for your question. Good luck with your pistol or whatever it was you are working on. Next question came in earlier today from Facebook. This one's from Martin. How does one get started with sculpting and casting? Which materials would a beginner need? What beginner materials and tools would you recommend for sculpting there, Eric? Oh, Eric has vanished.
Oh, no, I'm here. I just went to collect things. Bill, I started with Chavant. I did a lot of reading. You can learn anything on the internet. That's where I got started. I have no formal training doing this. There is a website you definitely need to go see if you're interested in sculpting. It's the Effects Lab. See if I can find it here. But it is pretty much anything and everything you could ever want to know about clay sculpting, FX casting for, there it is.
There we go. This place here, the THEEFFECTSLAB.com, the FX Lab.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I would go through their forums, see what they're using, and basically it just comes down to personal preference. I've been a Chavant guy for years and years and years, and recently I gave these guys a try, Monster Makers. Oh, there we go. And I think I'm pretty much going to switch over to them permanently from now on. Their clay is great. It agrees with me, and I can sculpt with it. So
Will brought a bunch of that. I'd never played with monster clay before, and he brought a bunch of it for the project he's currently working on. Will being my shopmate, and I started playing with it, and it's fantastic. I like it a lot. It responds very well to being heated up to make it malleable, and being cooled down to make it nice and rigid. As far as tools go, I ordered a bunch of really cheap ones from Amazon recently, just like the basic starter kit of sculpting tools. They'll be way cheaper on Amazon than if you go and get them at Michael's. But also before then, I used like popsicle sticks and dental tools from Harbor Freight to sculpt for like a couple of years before I went and bought legit tools.
these are some of my favorites, and I made all of these. Just a little bit of orthodontic wire that you see in braces. You can order that online. Some brass tubing and a little bit of epoxy clay. You can make a $10, $20 tool for $3.
Yep, there you go. So there you go, Martin. Some things to get you started. If you want to start casting, now we're talking about using silicone rubbers and that sort of stuff. That's a much deeper rabbit hole. And just bear in mind that if you're going to start casting stuff in silicone, silicone gets expensive really fast. So learn by building something small. Make a one-part mold of something really tiny so that you get familiar with your really expensive silicone material before you dive deep in and try and make a urethane mold for some reason and forget to put down, what was it, the release spray. And not only ruin your mold, but ruin the master that was in it. This is all what I did the first time I tried to make a mold, and it was about, I want to say, like $200 worth of materials I just threw out.
Hey, Bill, real quick, on the sculpting front as well, if you have any old bandsaw blades that you've broken, they've worn out, and you've replaced them, they make fantastic rakes. I don't know if you guys can see this, but little tiny tooth rakes.
Yep.
And larger tooth rakes, they are fantastic for getting your clay forms roughed in, and then you can start refining them with better tools. But that's a little tiny tip I picked up in the shop I'm working at now that has been saved me many hours.
Yeah.
And lots of money on tools. So.
I was at the shop or at the store with Will actually looking for exactly that kind of tool, and couldn't find it. Came home, took a hacksaw blade, and made one in like 5 minutes. So.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Good luck, Martin. Next question. This one's coming in also from Rob. This is over in the Q&A app on the event page. Eric says, I saw you said you needed a new airbrush. Did you decide on one yet? Was that you, Eric?
Yeah, I did. I got this guy. It's the Pache VLS Pro. It came highly recommended because it has an open nose cone that you can just pinch off any kind of paint buildup. As far as I've been told, I seriously considered getting an Iowata, but the guy at the shop, he recommended getting a Pache because the replacement parts are cheaper, there's less moving parts in it, and Iowatas are more for fine art and like super high detail and running like transparent inks and things that are very unviscous through them. Whereas Pache is more for like higher volume stuff. And if I'm mixing like latex or any kind of adhesive I want to spray through this thing, they recommended I go with the Pache. So
there you go.
I'm still very new to airbrushing, and I'll be the first one to tell you I'm terrible at painting. So this might have been a $120 brick that I just bought, but we'll see. I'm excited to learn about this. And it came in a fancy wooden box.
I know. I just got one, and it came in a cardboard box. Horse apples. The first airbrush I got came with my air compressor. I got a $60 air compressor kit on a Black Friday deal at Lowe's, and that little airbrush, this crappy one single action suction fed airbrush, has gotten more miles than I can tell you. I've used the crap out of that thing, and I still use it, even though I got a dual-action gravity-fed Iwata one. I still use that thing for doing, when I need to lay down, let's say, like the metallizer lacquer that I like so much. I'm not doing detail, I'm doing coverage on it. So I'll use that single-action one because I just crap paint out of it, and it's great, and it's got few moving parts. It's fairly easy to clean. And that thing was like, it came with my compressor. I did get a nice Iwata one that I like a lot, but having more than one on hand is also handy in case you want to have two different things going at the same time.
Especially for spraying water-based paints and solvent-based paints. You don't want to mix those two up in the same gun because you get some weird stuff going on.
Yeah. I can't remember what it was now. I did some sort of weird paint, and I usually just, whatever I'm laying around to clean it, I had like acetone, so I put acetone in to clean it. And whatever it was, I found the one thing that reacts violently to acetone, and it just gummed up the whole freaking thing. Really weird. So yeah, chemicals, folks. Mixing chemicals in your airbrush. All right, thank you, Rob. Good luck with your airbrushing. If you haven't gotten one yet, I recommend getting a cheap one to learn on. They can get pricey.
$20.
Alex wants to know. Hi, Alex. How do you both keep your inspiration over longer projects and multiple projects going back to back? What do you do to step away for a break, and how do you get back into the swing? Coffee. Lots of coffee on my end. I know that I can, like, for example, right now, I have one project I've been working on a whole long time for about the last month or so, and it's cool, it's fun, but I've had consistent 12-hour days or more for like a week and a half straight with no breaks, and every day I just wake up, go do it, go to sleep, wake up, go do it, go to sleep. The inspiration is, at least for this project, if I don't finish it, I don't get paid. So hunger can be a terribly powerful motivator. So how about you, Eric? You got a long project. You got your armor there going on. What keeps that fire burning?
I am the wrong person to ask about that. I'm a fan of a goldfish. I'll start building something, start watching a new show. Rewatch Battlestar for the 12th time. I don't know, and I'm like, I need to build that. I'm gonna go build that now, and so I'll completely abandon what I'm working on and go build something else. But what I've found is the most helpful for staying on track with the project is it's simple physics. An object in motion continues to stay in motion. Last night I burned the midnight oil, started working on dragon scale, got one of the bracers done, really excited about it, so all I thought about today at work was, I'm going to go home and work on this. I'm going to go home and work on this. And if you can chain so many of those days back to back to back where you're actually making progress, next thing you know, your project's going to be done. Because if you're working on something for 6 months at a time, you're going to get bored and you're going to wander. You're going to want to do something else, and that's not helpful for trying to get a project done on time. But yeah, fortunately for me, it's a hobby. If I was like Bill, I'd probably starve to death, and you know, either that or go out of business real quick. So it's like my food paid for in another way.
Yeah, especially if you have a project that is a very long-term project. You may end up working on a part that is one whole week worth of, let's say, making chainmail or something like that, where it's repetitive and it's a drag. And especially if it's your hobby, you don't want to come home from work to just work on your chainmail. So what I like to do in situations like that is pick a part of the project that I can finish in a day, or just in a single session, right? So that at the start of the session you don't have anything, and by the time you're done with it, you may put in an extra hour or two, but you have a finished thing, so that over that day you've got part of it done. And then instead of going, oh, I'm only 10% done with the chainmail, you're like, hey, I finished a gauntlet. So segment it into little parts, and then also give yourself milestones. So don't just say the whole thing needs to be done by DragonCon. Say this part should be done by May, this part should be done by June, this part, so that you have targets all along the way that you're trying to hit, and then, you know, split it up into different parts of the costume. The helmet will be done by June, and then in June you have a helmet that's all done, and you're like, oh, fantastic, and get that little endorphin rush. So, there you go, Alex. Good luck with your next project. All right, we've got a question coming in from Raise. This one's over in the Q&A app in the Google Hangout event page. Raise says, quick question, building a master prop build of a Spartan sword out of MDF. Should I coat it with anything before making a mold of it? Thank you. Again, like I said earlier, if you have those raw cut edges on MDF, even you can sand those down to a super high grit, and you may still get that fuzziness. I like using super glue. Just lay on a whole crap ton of super glue. You can sand it down. You can fill it after the fact. And then one thing I really like to do is filler primer, usually used in automotive applications. It's a super thick primer. Put a couple coats on that, and then sand it down, and then prime it and sand it again before it gets thrown under your silicone. That would be my recommendation. What do you think, Eric?
Nail on the head, man. That's
boom.
You know, cyanoacrylates, they soak into MDF really well.
Mm-hmm.
Dollar Tree is where I get my super glue at. They have two. Hold on a second.
All right. Holding on.
You guys right here.
Oh, there you go.
Lee Camara, Feveron, she found a website where you can get some really cheap super glue at, but locally I found this stuff right here, $1 for 0.22 ounces. It's the cheapest I've found. And just hose whatever you're working on in MDF, hose it down with that, and just go to town sanding it.
It dries almost instantly. The stuff I have comes with a spray that I liked a lot. The spray actually helps you not stick it to yourself, because if it cures right away, you're not going to accidentally lean on it and glue it to yourself. So there you go, the zip kicker.
Zip kicker. I don't work with super glue without it.
There you go. Thank you, Race, for your question. Good luck molding your sword. All right, this one's coming from Garrick. And Garrick says, once prop making became a job, did you find yourself more likely or less likely to try new techniques or methods or materials? Does earning your craft make you more or less risk adverse? I still make lots of dumb risks, both in techniques and in business, because I'm still pretty new to all this. But what I will frequently do is I'm at a point now where I can sort of pick and choose which commissions I take, which is nice because I tend to get a high volume of them coming in. And sometimes I'll pick a commission because I know that I get to try something new. Fortunately, also, I mean, I'm married, but I don't have a mortgage, and I don't have kids. So I can go a little lean on a month if I screw something up. Now, I haven't screwed anything up, but I'm in a position where totally botching a project because I was ambitious about learning a new technique isn't the end of the world for me. It's not the end of my business either. So I am very likely to try new techniques or lean towards projects where I would have the excuse to learn a new technique or, more importantly, buy a new tool. How about you, Eric? You excited about trying anything new?
I think my prop making these days has just become experimentation. If I know I can build it, and I've built something like it before, or if somebody else in the community has built it, like I'll never build a Daft Punk helmet because Harrison already just destroyed that one.
Someone's already solved that problem.
It's exactly right. I'll never build an Iron Man costume, as much as I'd like to have one. It's been done 1,000 times. It's been done 1,000 times well. Like with my current project, I've never used urethanes before. That's what gets me excited about this hobby, is learning something new and experimenting with new techniques and things. Fortunately, this is not my livelihood, and when I screw up, which I do often, it's not the end of the world. This is budgeted as, you know.
It's money you've already thrown away.
Exactly. I'm never seeing it.
No.
I'm casing a block of resin, so.
Yep. All right. Thank you for your question, Garrick. This one's coming in from the Q&A app. This one's from Alex. The question is, in your opinion, what is the best way to paint and protect a gold or chrome paint job? It's hard to beat a chromed finish that isn't actually chromed, you know? Because I've seen stuff that's would-be chromed, like a chrome spray paint, and it looks okay. But when you see something that's actually been chromed, i.e. Harrison's Daft Punk helmet's actually chromed, it has a perfect mirror finish on it, and you don't clear coat it or anything. It just comes out like that. It's really hard to beat that finish, I would say. Other than that, I haven't done very much finishing work that is that type of finish. Trying to think. I know that there's chrome spray paints. I just haven't had much experience with them. How about you, Eric?
There is a company called Alsa that makes the best rattle can system for sprays, chrome, gold chrome.
Ooh, there you go.
But you're talking about upwards of $200 for a 6-can system. That you really got to want this kind of quality to, invest that kind of cash in it. You can go your standard Duplicolor, your other basic rattle can chromes, but like you said, it's not chrome. It's an imitation of chrome. As for protecting it, I have not found a good way to clear coat
Be
it.
very careful.
If you do it with an acrylic or an enamel clear coat, it's going to dull it instantly. Same goes with rub and buff, liquid leaf, any kind of these suspended metal sprays or brush-on applications. They're really, really sensitive to whatever it is in acrylic and enamel clear coats. So I would say spray it and don't touch it. I know that can't really apply in a lot of situations if you're wearing a costume or handling a prop a lot, but I want to say on the RPF I've seen people have success using like a floor wax, like some kind of like a lacquer-based kind of thing, but I haven't got a whole lot of experience with that, so I couldn't tell you for sure.
Yeah, me neither. But that's cool. I mean, that's the sort of thing that I would love to play with at some point, but I just haven't. Again, if a commission came up that was like, let's say, economically feasible for me to try and actually get something chromed. Actually, one of my space guns I'm going to get chromed. Yeah, so I'll be learning, I'm sure, about that. There we go. My web guy is calling me because my web page went down because my domain transfer went through. So there we go. Thanks. I will call you later, Nate. Okay, another question from Facebook. John wants to know. Either of you have another question about Plasti-Dip. Wait, was this? Did I already answer this question? It looks very similar about Plasti-Dip. Maybe this is the same person. All right. Sorry, John. If you're not the same person, just go watch what we said earlier. This next question comes in from Adam. Adam says, I've been wanting to set up a screen or PC over a workbench like you and Volpin have. Any advice on how to do it and what I would need to buy? Worried about killing it. Okay, this is what you do. Go find a PC recycling shop or a used PC part shop. We have one in town called RePC. They go and buy old computer setups in bulk for cheap, and then they part it out. And then go find a monitor that just works. It doesn't, like mine, the color on it sucks. It's a 9-year-old monitor. Go get one of those cheap monitors, and I'm telling you, $5-10 most you're going to spend on one of these guys. And most monitors on the back will have mounting screws. And so look, when you're buying one, you may have to pop a piece off. There will be mounting screws on the back of them. Find one that's got mounting screws, and then get bolts that kind of fit in there. Get it close. Again, if you ruin this monitor, you're out $10. Not a big deal. And then I just put a 1x4 board on the back of it, mounted the board, and then there's a little bit of board on top of my monitor, a little below it, and I just put drywall screws through that into the wall. Piece of cake. Boom. Low tech. I had all the materials on hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. This one's coming from Nick. We're in the Q&A app. When working with EVA that can have holes in the surface, what do you use to fill them? What I know what I'll do is try and not cut out. I'll visually inspect a piece before I cut out and try and avoid those spots. I've heard tell that the stuff you get from Harbor Freight, which is what I use, has a higher tendency to have those little holes on them. But truth be told, that hasn't been a huge issue for me. Little dots and holes. You have any insight, Eric?
Depending on the size of the hole, you can cover it with your paint job, maybe.
You can plan on it being at a detail piece that you're going to cut out anyway, or lay another piece of foam on top of.
If it's a really huge gouge, you can mix up a little bit of contact cement with some Cavasil to thicken it up, and then just kind of putty over that hole. It'll be nice and flexible. It'll bond to your foam. It's a lot of work for patching holes in EVA, and an EVA is so cheap. I just grab another piece.
Grab another piece. Yeah. And if you're going to be sealing it anyway, you can just fill it in with whatever you're sealing it with. Good luck, Nick, with your EVA holes. All right, this one's coming from John. What's the single most useful or time-saving thing you purchased when you were starting out? What do you think, Eric? What saved you the most time?
Definitely the Share CD.
Yeah.
He put the qualifier in there of starting out. Otherwise, I would have said laser cutter.
Yep.
If there's a way I can build it using the laser cutter, I do. But first starting out, taking the assumption that a lot of starting out props are going to be out of foam, EVA, definitely a Dremel. Invest your probably 30, 40, 50 bucks in the different attachments for it, the different little bits. I know Will just did a really nice write-up about his tips for the day, which bits he uses. You should go over to
WMArmory.com
and look at his tips on that. There's really not a lot that you can't do with a Dremel.
Yeah. My big one, my workhorse for a long time has been my scroll saw, and I'll cut EVA out with that too. It's fantastic. But I'll tell you what, if I had bought a bandsaw 3 years ago, I might be saying the same thing about that bandsaw, because I just got one recently, and that thing chews through everything. So cool. And for any external sort of cut, internal cuts, you need a scroll saw. But for that bandsaw, the main thing for me is I cut through a lot of plastic, like let's say 1/2-inch acrylic sheet. And when you cut that on a scroll saw, that freaking melts, and it sucks, and it's really slow going. But you put that on the bandsaw's like, got this, no problem, let's go. Cut through it like nobody's business. And both of those, you don't like. The bandsaw I want cost $1,200. The one I bought cost $130. So you can get one that'll do pretty well for you for a long time for less than a couple $100.
Yeah, bandsaw for ripping large pieces of material, scroll saw for doing tiny detail work.
Yep, and you can do crazy detail work with a scroll saw too. A buddy of mine was showing me you can get blades that are spirals. So they have the omnidirectional cutting surface on the blade for a scroll saw. So you don't have to just push into the blade. You can rotate it. You can just move it any direction along the scroll saw, and it will cut like a laser might. Someday the scroll saw will just have a laser in it. You just run your material through it. What do you got going on there, Eric? There you go. There's some nice scroll saw action there. So is that you?
Oh no, I can't do that. That's well beyond my patience level for a scroll saw. I'd cut that on the laser in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah, well, and that's the other thing too, is once you have access to a laser cutter, which I do not yet. I don't know why I haven't done that yet.
Lazy. For what reason?
Then suddenly that scroll saw loses a lot of value.
Yeah.
All right, John, there you go. Scroll saw, Dremel, and maybe a bandsaw. Go for it. Next one's coming in from Dean. This is in the Q&A app. Being that you guys are total pros, what advice do you have for people who are new to making props and cosplay suits? Where to start? How to start? I would say to go buy my Beginner's Guide to Prop Making over on my webpage, but that's currently down right now. But I tend to, when I'm approaching a new hobby, I tend to approach it with both feet first and without looking. Just jump in. And then once the dust has settled, figure out what you did wrong. And then just don't do that next time. That's my recommendation.
Again, that's 100% on the mark there.
Yep. But again, like I was saying before, I like to choose projects I know will incorporate a new skill. So every time I do something new, I'm learning a little more and I'm getting better at it, as opposed to just doing a similar project over and over and over again. So when you're picking your first project, maybe base it around a skill that you don't have yet that you'd like to get better at. Making armor out of foam is a great place to start, because then you have to figure out how to template it or how to follow someone else's templates. You have to figure out how to cut it out. You have to figure out how to adhere it together and shape it. These are all really good basic techniques that you could start learning if you wanted to make some foam armor. And look on YouTube, because all the information's right on YouTube. Thank you, Dean, for your question. This one's coming from Parade Rainer Prop? No, Parade Rainer Cosplay. There we go. My question is about storage. I live in a small one-bedroom apartment and don't have much room for my EVA foam armor. Do you think it would be okay to store armor pieces in those 18-gallon tubs and put them outside, maybe cover them with a tarp? Worried about heating and sunlight, depending on where you live. I wouldn't worry about that in Seattle, where I live, because it doesn't really get that warm here. What do you think, Eric? You got to store all your armor bits. What are you going to do?
Nashville's hot. If you're in the South, don't do it. You're going to have a puddle of hot glue and some really warped EVA. EVA, it's designed to be walked on, so it'll take a beating. If you store it in a weird angle, crammed into a box, that's probably okay. It will have a tendency to want to keep its shape after a couple months, but if you pull it out of the box and you can recondition it with a heat gun, just kind of work it back into the shape you want it. But as a general rule of thumb, I probably wouldn't store stuff outside unless you really had to.
Yeah. I've been in the position before where, like last time I moved, some of my armor did not make the move, and I sold some of it. I gave some of it away, and I mean, I keep making new things. You will make more costumes, so you may have to just say, hey, who wants this? You may have to sell it or give it away. That's just the unfortunate reality, but the good news is when you've made room, you can go make something new. There you go. I personally would not store my stuff outside. That's my own thing. For fear of wild animals stealing it and running away with it. All right, another question from the Q&A app. This is from Nick. Looking into vacuum forming a very tall helmet out of PETG, Mr. Freeze's helmet. Big old clear dome thing. How tall of a piece can you vacuum form before the plastic just gets too thin? And how can you avoid webbing in a piece this tall? I don't have very much experience with vacuum forming. How about you, Eric?
I can pretty much go ahead and tell you, unless you're using an industrial-sized vacuum former, you're never going to get something the size of a helmet out of that without crazy amounts of webbing. I actually looked into doing a Mr. Freeze costume in the past. I would recommend looking for what's called a garden cloche. It's a preformed acrylic kind of dome, CLOCHE, I think. It has a little vent at the top. You put it over your plants in order to make them like little micro greenhouses. Yeah.
Here we go. So like this guy right here. Look at that. Kind of like a big plastic condom.
Yep. Whoa. Okay. Yeah. That's nothing's getting through that one.
Nope, including this child. He's never getting out. Poor kid.
As vacuum forming something like that, as soon as the plastic touches the top of your part, that's the area it has to stretch through. So unless you're using 1/4-inch acrylic or Vivac, you're going to have a really, really thin wall section at the bottom, and I don't think it's going to work out the way you want it to. Either that or it's going to spider web as it comes down, and something like that, it would be a really difficult shape to vacuum form at that size.
This guy right here seems like is almost exactly what they might need right there.
I would look at a prefab part rather than trying to vacuum form something.
Yep. I know the feeling too, because immediately whenever I want to make something, I'm like, I'm scratch building that. It's gonna be exactly like it. But then sometimes you see a piece, you're like, actually, that's almost all the way there. I'm okay with just buying that, and it's probably gonna be really cheap too. So there you go, Nick. Good luck with your Mr. Freeze helmet. Go buy a garden cloche. I learned something today. All right, another question from.
Hold on, Bill. Just a second.
Go ahead.
As just a general rule of thumb, when you're vacuum forming, if you make risers for your part, pick it up off the table an inch, 2 inches, depending on the size and orientation of your part. That can reduce the webbing at the bottom. and it also will give you a straight line to cut to instead of having the flare out from the material thickness. That'll give you that nice crisp edge as you come down to the bottom rather than having your part just come over and then cut out. So,
there you go. Risers for your vacuum forming. Fantastic. These are things I need to know too, based on the last thing I tried to vacuum form. All right, Miguel says, big fan of Jarman props. You know what? So am I. That Jarman props guy.
yeah.
He's wondering if he wants to know about your dragon scale armor, and we already covered that, but there you go.
Well, that's as far as I've gotten this week, but that's where we are.
Very nice.
Actually, Bill, this would be a good time to talk about this new thing that I've been working on.
All right, lay it on me.
Scrap molding. So, platinum and tin pure silicones. The reason you have those is they're very durable. They last forever in your mold library. You can have a platinum mold up to like 20-something years old and still be usable. You know, mileage may vary, but I've been working with urethane rubbers. This is Vitaflex 60, and urethane resins will attack it a lot more than platinum silicones, but for making scrap parts, this is maybe $6 worth of rubber. You know, it takes an accelerator. You can use Cavasil to thicken it to brush on your thickened layers. And I took this part and I made 20 of these for $6 worth of rubber.
There you go.
It's half the cost of Rebound or Mold Max, and I am really surprised I didn't know about this sooner because it's basically cut my molding costs in half. This is an incredibly economical way to do stuff. The only thing with this is you really have to use mold release. It is a urethane. The resins you're casting in it are urethanes. They will glue together if you're not careful. So ease off 205, 200. You can use Challenge 90, which is another mold release from BJP, and it's fantastic stuff. I would highly recommend at least looking into urethane rubbers for if you're making 1 copy of it or 10 copies. If you're making 300 copies, I would go with platinum or tin cure silicone.
Yeah. Or I don't know, 130 space guns.
Exactly.
Who would do that?
But this stuff, you can use an accelerator. I made this mold in less than an hour, start to finish.
Cool.
So it's very fast and very cheap. I cannot recommend it enough.
The other question Miguel had was wondering about doing if possibly I was doing some sort of tutorial on epoxy clay in the near future, something like Epoxy Sculpt or that new stuff that Smooth On has. I think it's called Freeform Air or Earth or something like that. Yeah, that's Go ahead.
No, Earth, Wind, Fire, Heart.
Oh yeah, I want to make Freeform Heart. That'll be my new material.
It only comes in red.
Yeah. So yeah, Epoxy Sculpt or any epoxy clays are super neat, and I could do a tutorial on that in the future, so I'll think about that. But also, right now, I'll tell you that it's generally a 2-part, 1-to-1 ratio kind of thing. You mix the 2 things together. It's very clay-like. You can sculpt it while it's still malleable. There are different flavors, let's say, that have different working times. And then the best part about it is that once it does cure, you can just sand it, and it's very rigid. It's nice and sandable, let's say. I believe Harrison said on his page, he's like, I'm not a sculptor, but when I use Epoxy Sculpt and then I can sand it, I am able to convince other people that I am a sculptor. So your sculpting doesn't have to be 100% like super fantastic. You can get a good general shape and then let it cure and then sand the crap out of it or Dremel it or whatever. What do you got there, Eric?
This is the Dragon Scale collar piece, and it's almost entirely made out of Freeform Air and Freeform Earth. So I've used the Earth to do the more metallic parts that I need a hard dremeling on, and then all the upper stuff that I'm sure this is not showing up at all, but
that's good.
All of this is in Freeform Air, so it's still fairly light. I'm going to mold and cast the whole thing anyway, but as a rigid base to sculpt on, it's fantastic stuff.
Oh yeah.
A little quicker. 24.
So yeah, does that even fit on your head?
No, it doesn't right now. Actually. So, which is a bummer.
All right, let's grab it. Let's. We got about 5 minutes left. See how many more questions we can burn through. This one's from Yan, over in the Q&A app, talking about weapons tutorial. Wondering if there's an N7 armor tutorial. I will tell you that once my webpage at punishprops.com is back up again in the next couple of days, I have a couple of build write-ups over there for the normal default N7 armor from Mass Effect 2. I did a whole bunch of those, and my Mass Effect Defender armor. So I had a couple of build write-ups there, but also I will have you know that I'm currently working on another prop making guide PDF that will be for sale on my website that will be all about making armor from foam. So if you're watching me here talk now, then rest assured when that information comes out, you will hear about it ASAP. There you go. Armor tutorials, you got it. Thank you, Yan. Last one from Facebook. This is Jason. This one comes with a visual aid. I'm gonna bring this up here, just like so. This is a hilarious. He's describing his words. Hilarious disaster. The clear coat reacted with the paint underneath, and if we look, there's this texture, this unwanted texture on the blade there, when the clear coat reacted poorly with the airbrushed acrylic and enamel underneath. Let's see the actual question. Or have you ever had anything like this happen before, and what did you do? He's trying to make this a super high gloss finish, and that's what happened. I've never actually had something like that happen before. I know our pal Harrison has, and he just rolled with it. He got a crackling thing going on, and he's like, well, that's how it's going to look. And then he put I think he sanded it, put a clear coat over the top of that. And it actually looked really neat, though not the original intended goal. It did look cool. You may just have to sand that all the way down and repaint it.
I talked to Jason a little bit about this, and he was mixing 2 different brands of paint. They could have some incompatibility there.
Right.
There's a ton of different reasons why this could happen. You could have humidity issues. If all the planets aren't aligned properly, sometimes fish-eyeing or this crackle kind of effect can happen. But if you're trying to go for a very high gloss, you don't want to sand your master copy down to 2000 grit because your paint won't stick to it. I would go no more than 400 grit, and then just to give your material enough teeth for that gloss coat to go on and stick to it. And then from there you can use a plastic polish. Novus makes a really good system. It's a 3-part system, rough, medium, and like a fine kind of wax that you buff into your part that you can get mirror finish on basically with your work. But you want to have a surface that has enough teeth to actually accept your high gloss, and then from there you can, once it's cured after at least 48 hours, you can go ahead and buff that down from there. But for that piece there, Jason, you're gonna have to sand that whole thing down or just deal with it.
Yep. And future note, if you're gonna try other types of layers of paint, then just do it on a scrap beforehand. If you're doing some tests later on, then you can just throw that scrap away. You don't have to sand it, fix it. All right, another question. Thank you, Jason, by the way, for your question. This one's from Alicia. This is probably going to be our last one. This is in the Q&A app. Alicia says, I'm not sure if I missed this or not, but I see you're making foam armor. Have you ever made armor or props out of PVC sheets? If so, did you like it, and do you have any advice on using it? I have. Have you used the old PVC sheets there, Eric?
Intra is a well-stocked material here in the shop. It is very handy to use. There's no grain. It's very light. It routes easily. It's good stuff.
I also have crap tons of PVC sheet in different thicknesses. I like it a lot, although I use it for armor less and less. I did make all of my let me see if I can find this. Since I'm like, oh, I'll just go look that up on my webpage. Oh, yeah, it doesn't work. I did my Hawk armor using PVC sheet and fiberglass. I fiberglassed all the seams together, and I do very much like how it turned out. Oh, of course I can't find it. Either way, but it's being rigid is both, you know, a boon and a curse, because sometimes that can make it difficult to work with if your armor has, let's say, complex curves on it in any way. If it's all straight edges and angles, awesome. Flat sheets are a piece of cake, but if you've got to make complex curves on it, something like foam is a lot easier. You can cut darts into it. You can heat form it really easy. You can even sometimes just form it by hand, just manhandle it. So that's been my experience with PVC. Also, if you heat it up so much that it turns brown, then you should evacuate your shop, because then it's releasing chlorine gas. That's a bad thing.
You also can't cut Centro with the laser cutter.
No, you cannot. That's even worse.
Yeah.
You can cut styrene. Was that?
I had that queued up for when you were talking about your website, but I never got to.
Oh no. So anyway, yeah, PVC sheet is great to have around. I use it a lot for prop stuff, or like if I need a mold wall really quickly. It's not the cheapest, but it's like a 1/4 inch thick piece of that stuff isn't gonna flex when I'm making a mold wall, so it's good to have around. Yeah. Thank you, Alicia, and thank you everyone else who joined us today with your questions and your viewership. And if we didn't get your question, I see Annabelle here threw in a question. Sorry, Annabelle. I'll get to you later. We'll do this again next week, I promise. Keep this going. And, of course, if you have questions about anything else, just go ahead and shoot me a question over on my Facebook page, facebook.com/punishprops, or on Twitter, twitter.com/chinbeard. Eric, would you mind terribly if people bugged you during the week with some questions?
Sure. I gladly welcome all questions.
Fantastic. You heard him, folks. You got your questions. You send them right to Eric Jarman. That's Jarman Props on Facebook. Anyway, folks, that's it for us tonight. Thank you again. Thank you, Eric, for joining us, and looking forward to another exciting episode of Prop Live next week. All right. Good evening.